Parkside Apartments. When Ethan Miller received the acceptance letter, he stared at the name printed on it, utterly dumbfounded. Is this some kind of mistake? Before Ethan could ask further, his dad, Mark Miller, snatched the letter. Nope, no mistake. It's Daniel Hayes, all right. Mark beamed, then politely thanked the mail carrier for his trouble, explaining, the kid never thought he'd actually get in. He's just a bit overwhelmed. Once the mail carrier left, Mark closed the door, his expression turning apologetic. Ethan, son, I did this for your own good. Ethan couldn't believe it. His father had kept something this monumental from him. Dad, do you have any idea what happens if this gets out? My life will be ruined. I'd rather retake my SATs and apply again next year than. Mark cut him off. What do you know? Apply again? Do you even realize what your scores were? Even with another year, do you think you'd get into a decent four-year college? Ethan's grades, admittedly, weren't great. His dad's blunt words silenced him. Just then, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was Kevin Wallace, inviting him to a college send-off party. The news left a bitter taste in Ethan's mouth. Sure, I'll be there. He couldn't stomach the idea of using someone else's name, and the thought of facing his classmates now filled him with shame. Yet he felt obligated to go. As Ethan wrestled with his conscience, his dad announced they should attend Kevin's party with their heads held high. Mark even planned to throw an equally lavish party for Ethan. All those gifts we've given out over the years for other kids' parties, Mark said, it's time we got some of that back. Ethan was speechless, unable to comprehend his father's logic. Dad, if I'd actually earned this, a party would be fine. But this is identity theft, and you want to broadcast it. Mark chuckled. Then his face hardened into a scowl. What do you know? Those four words echoed in Ethan's ears like a recurring nightmare. Dad, he began, but Mark again cut him off. Enough. You're going to listen to me, and trust that I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. Mark went on, emphasizing that Ethan needed to adapt to his new identity as quickly as possible. Hesitation and fear would only make things more suspicious. If Ethan himself believed it to be true, then everything happening would become real. Ethan found this impossible to accept. He tried several times to snatch the acceptance letter from his father, but Mark clung to it like it was his lifeline, refusing to let go. Finally, after a struggle, Mark proposed a bet. How about this? You go to Kevin's party. If you still feel the same way afterward, I'll let you tear up the letter. Ethan nodded, agreeing to wait until after Kevin Wallace's party in a few days. That evening, Ethan's mom, Sarah, came home from work. Mark immediately shared the good news with her, then quietly told her the truth. Sarah was terrified. Mark, how could you do something like this? Mark just smiled, saying it was a done deal. If they didn't want to jeopardize Ethan's future now, they'd better cooperate and help organize the send-off party. Sarah felt helpless. If this got out, it would truly destroy Ethan. She decided to go along with it, to hide everything as best as she could. Besides, this Daniel Hayes kid was from Cedar Creek, Montana, a tiny town miles and miles from their city, Kingston. Even if he wanted to investigate, he'd never trace it back here. A flicker of wishful thinking sparked in Sarah. Deep down, she too wanted her son to get into a good college. She began to deceive herself, numbing her conscience. From his bedroom, Ethan saw it all. He couldn't believe his mom hadn't stood her ground, that she'd sided with his dad. He didn't even have the energy to rush out and tell them to hold off on the party plans, at least until he'd made up his mind. He was past caring. Let them do what they wanted. In a few days, he'd tear up that letter, the one that didn't belong to him. If they were so afraid of public humiliation, he'd make sure they faced an even bigger one in front of all their friends and family. To hell with it all. Resentment and rebellion simmered inside him. For the next few days, Ethan holed up in his room, passively resisting, until the day of Kevin's party. Only then did he change his clothes and leave the house. Not being in the mood, Ethan was dressed casually when he arrived at the restaurant. A few classmates spotted him outside, and their faces immediately soured. Seriously, Ethan? We all know you didn't get into any decent college, but do you have to be so obviously jealous of Kevin? Any other time, whatever, but showing up dressed like that to an event like this? You're telling me that's not on purpose. Their remarks, one after another, stung Ethan. Who says I didn't get in? Although he had to admit his grades were usually terrible, he couldn't stand being publicly ridiculed. When he insisted he'd been accepted, his classmates naturally didn't believe him. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming. Ignore him. All talk, no action, that's him. Just then, Kevin Wallace came out, warmly greeting everyone. He suggested all the classmates sit together to celebrate, since they'd soon be going their separate ways, possibly not even returning to Kingston after graduation. He urged them to cherish this rare get-together. At that point, someone spoke up, saying they'd sit with anyone but Ethan. Kevin, curious, asked why. As someone was about to explain, Ethan stepped forward. First, I don't think dressing casually means I'm disrespecting anyone. We're all classmates. There's no need for all that corporate world pretense. Kevin had noticed Ethan's attire when he came out to greet them, and had felt a twinge of annoyance. But being the host on a happy occasion, he hadn't said anything. Ethan's words now made Kevin feel a bit sheepish. As Ethan said, friendship among classmates should be pure. Not just Kevin, but also the instigators of the criticism looked ashamed. I take back what I said, one of them mumbled, but Ethan clearly wasn't finished. He raised his voice. Second, I'll say it again. I did get into a good school, too. Ethan emphasized his words, trying to mask his lack of confidence. He never imagined these classmates, not even officially out in the real world yet, were already so superficial. He had to defend his dignity. Even if it was a lie, he couldn't let them look down on him. Ethan's announcement dropped like a bombshell. You really got in? Someone blurted out. Ethan responded to the doubt with a cold glare. Want to come over to my place right now? I'll show you the acceptance letter. His voice grew sharper. That did it. The doubters were convinced. Ethan, don't misunderstand. That's not what we meant. These people changed their tune faster than you could flip a page. At that moment, Ethan deeply believed what his dad had said. There were some things he truly didn't understand. So, this was high school society, its own little jungle, complete with social politics, and people looking down their noses at you. Ethan's mind was completely changed. He didn't know it yet, but this shift was leading him step by step into an abyss. He barely remembered the rest of Kevin's party. All he recalled was, before leaving, inviting everyone present to his send-off party in a few days. Kevin's celebration had been lively and impressive, and it directly provoked Ethan. Why couldn't he have all that? Just because his grades used to be bad. He wouldn't accept it. The memory of some of their sneering faces fueled his anger. Right now, for Ethan, whether it was real or fake, it was just as his dad said. If he believed it was real, then it was real. Back home, Ethan was no longer passive. He became incredibly proactive and flamboyant, meticulously preparing for days. At his party, Ethan was the center of attention. He reveled in the feeling of being adored, and later, he even got on stage and gave an impassioned speech. Distinguished guests, my friends, and classmates. The more Ethan spoke, the more emotional he became. He talked about looking back on the past and forward to the future, saying a great deal. Standing on stage, Ethan himself felt like he was a different person. He'd never been so articulate. He felt the change had begun the moment he received that acceptance letter. Attending Kevin's party was merely the catalyst. Ethan stood on stage, thinking to himself, now I finally understand what I want. Whether he was Ethan Miller or Daniel Hayes, what he wanted was simply a bright future, not to live under the judgment of others. It was then that Ethan realized he might have a kind of dual personality. His outward insistence on principles had ultimately crumbled before his inner desires. If that's the case, why not follow my heart? In that instant, Ethan decided, from now on, he would use this new identity to live a different, more exciting life. Soon, it was time for college to start. Ethan, along with other freshmen, reported to Ashton University. To adapt to his new identity, he put in a lot of effort beforehand, like practicing Daniel Hayes' signature. This wasn't about mimicking a celebrity. It was about fully stepping into the role. The freshman registration process went smoothly. Ethan's anxious heart finally settled. He had worried about being exposed, but as campus life officially began, these concerns evaporated. To better assimilate, Ethan proactively sought and secured an opportunity to give a speech at freshman orientation. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Hayes. I was born in the winter, and, as the only boy in my family, my parents hoped I could stand tall and be a true man. Ethan delivered another rousing speech. His words moved even himself. Though some of the stories weren't his, he never felt like he was narrating someone else's life. He fully embodied the persona, telling his own story. He was lost in it, unable to pull himself out. For a moment, he even lost touch with his original self. He hated that incompetent former self. If Ethan Miller hadn't been so incapable, why would he need to live as someone else, starting his college life under a stolen name? While Ethan delivered his freshman speech, the audience below erupted in thunderous applause for his brilliant performance. He became even more uncontrollably excited. This was the life he was meant to have. His amazing journey was just beginning. The dorm, a standard 6-person suite. Due to random assignment, his bed was near the window, not an ideal spot. In summer, mosquitoes would be the first to visit. In winter, the first gust of cold wind would find him. Moreover, since guys rarely bother with curtains, anyone standing downstairs could easily look up and see into the room, a clear invasion of privacy. Ethan didn't mind, though. It was a random assignment. He could only blame his luck. He was more concerned about who would be the suite rep. Based on his high school boarding experience, one student was usually chosen to liaise with the dorm supervisor. Ethan wanted to run for suite rep. Not only that, he planned to join the student government later. In short, his life had to be completely different from before. 3 of his suite mates supported Ethan. Another, Dylan Carter, nominated Will Johnson, who slept in the bunk below him. Will Johnson stepped forward assertively. "Since Dylan nominated me, I guess I can throw my hat in the ring." Ethan found Will's move amusing. Even if Ethan himself abstained, it was a 3-2 vote. Where did Will get the nerve to compete? And what did he mean by, "I guess I can"? Without any real support, Will's tone implied he was looking down on the suite rep position. Despite this, Ethan, wanting to keep the peace, agreed. "I completely agree." Will laughed out loud. "Haha, then just wait for the announcement. This position is basically pre-assigned anyway." Ethan felt like he'd been played. "What do you mean?" Will's tone turned icy. "Nothing much. Don't take this the wrong way, but there's a saying, 'Country boy comes to the city.'" Ethan flared up. "What are you talking about? Who's a country boy?" Will shrugged. "You forget what you said in your own speech so quickly? Who was it that told the entire student body they came from the mountains, that their parents struggled to send them to college?" Ethan was speechless. If he were facing Will as his true self, he wouldn't dare boast about his family's wealth, but he could at least challenge him. But using Daniel Hayes' identity, coming from the mountains became an ineradicable stain. He understood Will's implication. Someone like him, who hadn't seen the world, if he became suite rep, might just help himself to other people's belongings. The fox guarding the henhouse. That kind of thing was hardest to prove. Just then, the other 3 who had supported Ethan immediately changed their tune. "Well, if it's an appointed position, we should just follow the university's rules." Ethan felt a wave of deflation. His high school clique was a battlefield, and this small dorm suite was clearly another one. Ethan felt bewildered by this inescapable social game. What was he supposed to do now? His hopes of becoming suite rep were dashed, and worse, thanks to Will Johnson's remark, his suite mates would likely view him with suspicion for some time. This wasn't the outcome Ethan wanted. He had to find a way to break this deadlock. "Maybe, when I'm in the dorm, I should try to be more like my real self," he mused. Having made up his mind, Ethan decided to gradually rehabilitate his image. But this rehabilitation needed to be built on a foundation of him having some standing on campus. At that moment, he decided the petty suite rep position wasn't worth it. He had to go all out for the class council elections. Class council positions in college weren't like in high school. Thankless job was an understatement. Once in college, students felt liberated. Who wanted to listen to student officers bossing them around? Everyone lived on the same campus. Who was managing whom? Many students just wanted to happily coast through their 4 years. For Ethan, this was a rare opportunity. Many students only saw the thankless effort involved in being a class officer, but overlooked the benefits. On a college campus, unless you were exceptionally outstanding, it was hard to get noticed by your academic advisor. If you couldn't even get your advisor's attention, you wouldn't be considered for any good opportunities. Moreover, being a class officer allowed one to accumulate management experience and build connections, real, tangible benefits. If I can't avoid the game, I might as well dive in. Ethan thought, and began actively preparing for the class council elections. This time, he prepared for the worst. If he couldn't become class president or academic representative, he would at least compete for a vice position or some less demanding role, like social chair or activities coordinator, anything that came with the title of a class officer. To play it safe, Ethan started doing some reconnaissance. After some digging, he decided to give up on running for class president. Even if he had a shot, failing to become suite rep had been a harsh wake-up call. If he aimed too high and failed, he'd end up with nothing. As his investigation progressed, Ethan sighed to himself. It's a small world, especially for rivals. Looks like I'll have to take a step back to move forward. He would never have dreamed it. The frontrunner for class president this time was, yet again, Will Johnson. What connections Will had, or what his family background was, no longer mattered to Ethan. Play it safe. Still, play it safe. He decided to avoid a direct clash with Will Johnson. Let him have his moment. We'll play this game out slowly later. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Over 4 years of college, he'd have plenty of opportunities to make Will's life miserable. Ethan had it all planned. As soon as he got onto the class council, he would eventually marginalize Will, isolating him. He might even create trouble for Will, making him a public target. With this in mind, Ethan chose to run only for social chair. It was a demanding role. All the day-to-day trivialities among classmates fell on the social chair. But becoming social chair had a clear advantage. It allowed for better integration with classmates and often came with the unofficial duties of a vice president. What happened next was no surprise. Ethan successfully became the social chair and, by extension, the acting vice president. Will Johnson, despite high expectations, unexpectedly lost the election for president. The person who became class president was named Chris Morgan. Ethan felt a pang of regret. Man, I should have taken a gamble. But there were no do-overs in life. What happened was now a done deal. That evening, Will Johnson asked to meet Ethan privately. Dude, can we let bygones be bygones? As they say, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Will was direct. He was clearly upset about losing the election and wanted to form an alliance with Ethan to counter Chris Morgan. Ethan, understanding Will's intention, shook his head. We can let bygones be bygones, but what's in it for me to ally with you? Will smiled, saying there were many benefits. For instance, applying for student grants. Ethan shook his head more vehemently. You really think I'm short on cash? Will was taken aback. What? From your tone, it sounds like you're looking down on that kind of money. Ethan smiled. It's not about looking down on it or not. It's about leading by example. As soon as he finished speaking, Will's face fell. Dude, more friends mean more options. Ethan was even more direct in his retort. We walk different paths. From now on, it's best we stay out of each other's way. Ethan wouldn't dare consider someone as two-faced and prone to backstabbing as Will Johnson a partner, let alone a friend. Befriend someone like Will, and you wouldn't even know how you died one day. Ethan would rather offend Will now than get too close. Will's face contorted with anger. You'll regret this. With that, he stormed off. Ethan already guessed what kind of retaliatory tactics Will might employ, framing him perhaps. Yet, Ethan felt no fear. On the contrary, he was almost hoping Will would try something. Will wasn't a good partner, but he was someone who could be used. Ethan made up his mind. As long as he had something on Will, he wasn't afraid Will wouldn't listen. Over the next few days, Ethan deliberately created opportunities for Will. Will, unaware of the trap, took the bait. One day, while Ethan was out, Will snuck back into the dorm suite and hid their suitemate Nathan Chen's phone in Ethan's suitcase. Nathan, remembering he'd left his phone in the suite, returned and couldn't find it anywhere. Panicked, Nathan opened his laptop and logged into the manufacturer's website to locate it. It's on campus? Who came in here? Will returned at a very timely moment. What happened? As suite rep, upon learning Nathan's phone was missing, he naturally had to take charge. He immediately gave his own phone to Nathan. Don't panic. Since it's located on campus, it should be easy to find. Nathan took the phone and started calling his own number. As it rang, it was clear the phone was in the suite. Will, still playing the good guy, asked Nathan if he'd forgotten where he put it or if it had fallen under the desk or bed. He helped Nathan, and the two of them turned the place upside down. Finally, they zeroed in on the target. Daniel Hayes' suitcase? No way. Will was still acting. Just then, Ethan returned. As soon as he entered the suite, he confessed. Nathan's phone is indeed my suitcase. Now Nathan wouldn't let it go, demanding, Why did you steal my phone? Faced with the accusation, Ethan suddenly laughed. Haha, before you ask why, let me show you a video. With that, Ethan pulled out his phone. The video documented the entire incident. Then, Ethan looked at Nathan. I too hope this was just a joke from our suite rep. Will never imagined Ethan had filmed him. He wished the ground would swallow him whole. He tried to be clever, but ended up outsmarted. He was furious, but helpless. Fortunately, Ethan was giving him an out. He forced an awkward laugh. I was indeed just trying to pull a prank. Though he said that, Nathan wasn't willing to treat it as a joke. He pointed directly at Will. Will Johnson, you think this is a joke? Will felt like dying. Yes, it really wasn't funny. This time, Will had thoroughly messed up. Although Ethan stepped in, repeatedly saying it was just a misunderstanding, Nathan, the victim, refused to accept that. Ethan thought for a moment and said, Will, how about this? You write a letter of apology. Then treat Nathan to dinner to make amends. He had already figured it out. If Will could play the good guy in front of everyone, why couldn't Ethan step up now as the peacemaker? Will felt incredibly aggrieved, but powerless. He had stumbled badly this time, and at the hands of the person he usually despised most. Daniel Hayes, you son of a bitch, playing dirty. Though a fuming Will Johnson eventually conceded, when he was alone with Ethan, he couldn't help but curse. Ethan didn't get angry. Instead, he wore a pleasant expression. Will, I remember you wanted to collaborate with me last time. Will snorted. Collaborate? With you? Heh, in your dreams. Ethan remained unfazed. I'm afraid it's not up to you now. As he spoke, Ethan himself found it incredible. Was everything he was doing truly what he wanted deep down? He asked himself over and over. Unfortunately, no one could give him an answer. Ethan was lost. Which one was the real him? Ever since he'd become the embodiment of someone else, this dual personality had become increasingly pronounced. The darker side of Ethan's humanity was on full display. Looking at Will Johnson now, an unwilling glint in his eyes, he bit out, "I agree." Ethan had the video. If he posted it on the campus online forum or the university subreddit, Will would be completely ruined. Faced with Will's submission, Ethan nodded with satisfaction and laughed heartily. Haha, it's just a collaboration. Is it really that difficult? Besides, working with me is beneficial for you, isn't it? Will asked urgently. Are you going after Chris Morgan, the class president? Ethan waved his hand dismissively. It's not me going after Chris Morgan, it's you. As a council member, my only obligation is to cooperate with his work. I have no other intentions. This is all your idea. Ethan emphasized. Will knew very well that Ethan planned to use him as a pawn, but he was helpless. Daniel Hayes, you're practically a devil. Ethan roared with laughter. The other half of a devil is an angel. When you replace Chris Morgan, you'll truly understand this saying. I'll be the angel by your side. Will couldn't believe these words were coming from Daniel Hayes. A freshman, yet so calculatingly dark. Terrifying. This person was terrifying. As Will thought this, he decided he could only compromise with Daniel Hayes for now. Later, he'd find a way to destroy the evidence Ethan held. As long as that evidence remained in Ethan's hands, it was a ticking time bomb. But even if he destroyed the physical evidence, there was still a human witness. He also had to get on good terms with Nathan Shun. During the internal vote for Sweet Rep, Nathan had supported Daniel Hayes. At this point, Will didn't know that Nathan had actually colluded with Ethan beforehand. This Daniel Hayes was far more formidable than he imagined. Meanwhile, in Cedar Creek, Montana, the real Daniel Hayes couldn't believe he had genuinely performed so poorly on his college entrance exams. He chose to take a gap year and reapply. While studying, Daniel vowed to uncover the truth. He vaguely suspected someone had stolen his identity. But as a kid from a poor, rural background, what could he do even if he had suspicions? His life's trajectory had been altered. Originally, he and Chloe Davis, a girl from his class in Kingston, had planned to meet on a college campus. Chloe got into a good school, Harrison College, but he didn't get in anywhere. Because of this, Daniel avoided Chloe, but she still found him and offered encouragement. Our promise still stands. If not this year, then next year. Anyway, I'll wait for you. If it weren't for Chloe, Daniel would have packed his bags and gone to find work in the city. His family already struggled to afford his education, and now he was wasting another year. Neither of these two individuals, whose lives had been artificially changed, could have imagined their paths would cross in the future. On the Ashton University campus, Ethan Miller, still dominated by his dual personality, strayed further and further down the wrong path. The real Daniel Hayes, now restudying, harbored both love and hate. He hated the person who had stolen his place, hoping one day to find him and demand to know if his conscience didn't ache. He secretly loved Chloe Davis, looking forward to the day they could reunite. As the saying goes, fate plays tricks on people. The real Daniel Hayes now also felt like he had a kind of split personality, a potent mix of love and resentment. On the university campus, Ethan Miller was thriving. He had said he would change everything from his past. No one could look down on him anymore. Anyone who stood in his way was an enemy. In the blink of an eye, it was the second semester of freshman year. Will Johnson got his wish and became the new class president, as Chris Morgan had made some mistakes and was deemed unfit for the role. However, Will, as president, was constrained at every turn, forced to follow Ethan's dictates. Yet, it created an illusion that the entire class council was unprecedentedly united, even becoming a model for the university. No other class had a president and vice president. Ethan, as social chair, often acted as such, so harmoniously aligned. Because both performed exceptionally well, they've both caught the attention of the university administration. They've both got into the student government. Ethan felt his life had taken another step forward. Being a member of student government meant more opportunities to participate in and experience things beyond the campus, such as organizing practical activities and collaborating with other universities. It was through an intercollegiate event that Ethan met Chloe Davis from Harrison College. At Harrison, Chloe was considered campus beauty material. Ethan was instantly smitten. He proactively got Chloe's contact information and began to formally pursue her. The nightmare began then. Ethan didn't yet know that Chloe Davis, at Harrison College, was waiting for the real Daniel Hayes to arrive. They had already made plans. Chloe privately texted Daniel, "I think I found the guy you suspect." Daniel's heart leaped when he received the message. "Finally, I'm going to expose him right now." Chloe immediately texted back, urging him not to. Exposing this person now would be letting him off too easily. Even if Ashton University found out and expelled him immediately, Daniel would still be unable to attend Ashton. If you want someone to perish, first make them go mad. The best way to get revenge on someone is to build them up only to tear them down. Lift them high, so they fall harder. Besides, Chloe hadn't yet figured out the imposter's true identity. She needed to wait for things to unfold naturally. I hope to see you at Harrison College when the semester starts. Then we can deal with this person together. Sooner or later, he'll face utter ruin. Daniel calmed down and agreed. In the blink of an eye, sophomore year arrived. Ethan and Chloe's relationship had made some progress. But for Ethan, it was just a small step forward. He hadn't expected Chloe to be so hard to win over. Chloe neither agreed nor refused, just kept Ethan hanging. At this point, Ethan still didn't realize that one acceptance letter had altered the destinies of 3 people. Chloe, once a simple and kind girl, had also learned to be scheming. The root of it all was hatred. Ethan hadn't just ruined Daniel Hayes' future. He had destroyed a once innocent, budding romance. Chloe's parents had been reluctant from the start for her to get too close to Daniel, and Daniel's failure to get into college gave them a perfect excuse. After all, Daniel's family was very poor. If Daniel could show a bit more ambition, perhaps their young love might have had a chance. At least now, Chloe didn't dare be open about any continued connection. Daniel's parents also advised him to be more realistic, constantly telling him that he and Chloe were on different levels now that she was in college. She would inevitably meet someone better and change her mind. Daniel firmly believed Chloe wouldn't change. Yet, Chloe hadn't contacted him for a long time, which made him overthink. He even considered giving up. It wasn't until he received Chloe's message that his confidence was rekindled. I want to see for myself what kind of person stole my place. Fortune favors the persistent. Daniel Hayes finally got into Harrison College. His scores were good this year. If he hadn't insisted on Harrison, he could have aimed for an Ivy League school. Everyone said it was a pity. Only Daniel smiled and said there was nothing to regret. Even if he got into a top-tier university, it wouldn't be as meaningful as attending Harrison. Some things outsiders just wouldn't understand. Daniel dragged his suitcase, clutching his acceptance letter, visibly excited. After arriving at Harrison College, he began to look around. Chloe had said she would come and pick him up. Just then, an upperclassman walked towards him. "Hello, are you Daniel Hayes?" The person then introduced himself. "My name is Owen Barnes. Chloe, Miss Davis, had something urgent come up, so she asked me to meet you." Daniel didn't think much of it. He knew Chloe was in student government, and today was freshman move-in day. She was bound to be busy. "No problem. Thanks for your help, Owen." Under Owen's guidance, Daniel officially began his college life. The next few days were standard freshman orientation. Throughout the entire orientation, Daniel didn't see Chloe. He couldn't help but send her text. Chloe replied quickly. "So sorry, I've been swamped these past few days. I'll find you in a couple of days." Daniel just replied, "Okay." At this point, he couldn't help but feel a bit down. After a few days of college life, he realized that as a kid from the mountains, he really was like someone who'd never seen the big city. His classmates were all friendly to him, but deep down, Daniel felt a sense of inferiority. As the saying goes, you feel indebted when you accept help or gifts. Other students, to quickly integrate into their new life, actively treated each other to meals, but Daniel couldn't afford to. He could only choose not to participate. This made him feel, subtly, what it was like to be isolated. Although his classmates said nothing and seemed the same as ever, Daniel couldn't help but overthink. Is even Chloe giving me the cold shoulder now? Am I embarrassing her by being like this? The more Daniel thought, the worse he felt. Poverty was the original sin. If only his family's financial situation were even slightly better. Now he finally had a chance to reunite with Chloe, but did it have to be so furtive? When can I finally hold my head high? Then Daniel heard the campus dining hall was hiring servers. Not only did you get 3 free meals a day, but they also paid a wage. Daniel signed up. Just a few days of college life had refreshed his thinking and perception. I need to earn money. I want to be like everyone else, to proudly give Chloe flowers. Once Daniel got busy, many things slowly faded from his mind. This continued for about a month. Only then did Chloe take the initiative to find him. Daniel complained a little. "Chloe, do you think I'm embarrassing you?" By now, Daniel had begun to question whether their bond was truly unbreakable. Chloe smiled. "Are you that lacking in confidence?" Daniel sighed deeply. "Confidence, I once had it, but after I failed to get into college, it vanished. Ambition can't beat reality." Chloe listened to his words, silent for a long time, just looking at Daniel as if he were a stranger. "Daniel, I find you've changed." Daniel gave a wry smile. "Everyone changes, don't they?" You're a bit different from before, too. Daniel's words were hurtful. Chloe's eyebrows shot up. Daniel Hayes, for you to say that, after I waited a year for you, your current state is truly disappointing. With that, Chloe turned to leave. Yes, I have changed, but isn't my change because of you? To help you, I'm no longer that innocent girl. I didn't expect you to be so ungrateful and say such things. Goodbye. Daniel realized his words had been too harsh and hurried after her. Chloe, listen to me. I waited a month to see you. Before he could finish, Chloe's expression hardened, her eyebrows arching. A month? Huh. So what about me waiting a year for you? Faced with her question, Daniel Hayes was speechless. His mouth hung open, the words caught in his throat. After a long moment, he finally squeezed out, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Chloe snorted. I'm not here to listen to your apologies. Seeing you give up on yourself like this, I don't see any hope or future in us staying together. Daniel was stunned. Chloe, what do you mean? Chloe replied, nothing. I just hope we can both think things over calmly. Goodbye. When Chloe said goodbye for the second time, Daniel felt like his world was collapsing. Suddenly, he rushed in front of her, stretching out his arms to block her path. Chloe, tell me, who is he? The one who ruined everything for me. Daniel's voice was filled with agitation. Chloe's face was impassive. It seems you still haven't learned to be mature and composed. So, my decision was right. As she spoke, Chloe gently pushed Daniel's arms aside, signaling him to stop making a scene. This was a college campus, and a commotion would reflect poorly on them. Think about it yourself. There's a saying, revenge is a dish best served cold. Chloe's words were laden with meaning, but she didn't spell it out, leaving Daniel in a state of partial understanding. At Ashton University, these past few days, Ethan Miller was riding high. His relationship with Chloe Davis had progressed further. He didn't know this was all part of Chloe's revenge plan. He was more like a puppet in her hands. To avenge Daniel, Chloe had studied Ethan's psychology, or rather, male psychology, thoroughly. As the saying goes, what you can't have is always the most alluring. Because Ethan had been unable to win her over for so long, he cherished every small step in their relationship's development. Any little gain felt like a huge leap forward to him. Ethan secretly made excuses for himself. Chloe is, after all, considered a campus beauty at Harrison College. It's normal that she's hard to get. Now, Ethan and Chloe had an unofficial romantic relationship. For him, this was already an incredible achievement, filling him with a sense of accomplishment. After all, his rivals were all the guys at Harrison College, like Owen Barnes, whom he had defeated. He didn't know Owen was just an actor hired by Chloe. She needed to keep Ethan constantly on edge. What Chloe didn't realize was that her actions were, in themselves, playing with fire. By a strange twist of fate, Owen Barnes would also get dragged into this. Before Owen got involved, Ethan experienced another piece of good news aside from his romantic pursuits. Word spread like wildfire through his class. The cause was an article he had written, which was published by an online platform and went viral. Ethan knew he hadn't written it, but he had to admit this viral piece was published under his stolen name. After celebrating with his classmates, Ethan felt a sense of impending doom. Crap, does this mean the real Daniel Hayes has found me? He couldn't think of any other possibility. He had never submitted any articles, let alone one with his university and name attached. Although such viral online articles didn't carry immense academic weight, not everyone could produce one. And the good things happening to Ethan didn't stop there. They came one after another. In just one semester, Daniel Hayes had not only published viral articles, but had also performed a host of good deeds. Ethan felt increasingly trapped in a nightmare. He worried these so-called good deeds wouldn't help him at all, but would instead push him into the spotlight. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. Yet, at this very moment, Will Johnson was relentlessly fanning the flames, promoting these stories. Ethan was exceptionally frustrated. Will had been forced to compromise earlier because Ethan had leverage over him. He wouldn't be this kind-hearted. What is he trying to do? Right now, Ethan couldn't find the real Daniel Hayes. The best strategy was to keep a low profile, but things were going against his wishes. Will's enthusiasm was excessive. The university's online forums and popular student social media pages were flooded daily with posts actively promoting Ethan. If this continued, Ethan would eventually be ruined by Will's helpfulness. He realized Will was trying to kill him with praise. He quickly found Will and confronted him. We're collaborators, true, but don't overdo your enthusiasm. Will chuckled, his tone dripping with insincerity. What? Did something good and afraid of people publicizing it? Hearing this, Ethan sensed something was off and immediately issued a warning. Stay out of my business. In short, I don't need your helpfulness. Will then laid his cards on the table. If you want to stop, fine. Like you said before, we'll stay out of each other's way. I don't expect you to destroy the evidence now, but let's just leave each other alone until graduation. Because I have leverage now, too. Will emphasized his words. After stressing the point, Will asked Ethan, deal? At these words, Ethan physically recoiled. Even though Will hadn't explicitly stated it, Ethan could feel that Will had a strong hand this time. He never dreamed he would be cornered by Will like this, and that Will's trump card was clearly much bigger than his own. After intense internal debate, Ethan conceded. Fine, as you wish. We'll stay out of each other's way from now on. Will smiled with satisfaction. That's more like it. After saying this, the expression on Will's face was one of clear relief. From then on, apart from their normal classmate relationship, they truly had no further contact. At this point, they both knew very well that whoever exposed the other first, the end result would be mutual destruction. At Harrison College, Chloe Davis met up with a real Daniel Hayes. You've finally matured. Daniel nodded. Sometimes, I don't want to be like this either. But reality forces you. Have you found out the real identity of the person who replaced me? Chloe gave a wry smile. It's not that easy. Have you considered that if you can't make it through college, this whole thing will still affect you? Daniel asked her why. Chloe didn't explain, just told Daniel to be patient a little longer. Daniel was confused. I can't stand another day. It's so obvious now that he's the one who stole my identity. Why can't we punish the bad guy now? Chloe said, punishing him now would be too lenient. Her words, though soft, sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Daniel said quietly, sometimes a person can become terrifying, including you and me. In a flash, Ethan Miller was in his fourth year of college. Daniel Hayes had also entered his junior year. The one-year difference between them had changed so much. Although Ethan lived in daily fear, the real Daniel Hayes was clearly lurking in the shadows, but had yet to make a move, making Ethan increasingly agitated and uneasy. Graduation was approaching, and Will Johnson secretly stirred up some trouble for him. Ethan ended up resigning from student government prematurely. The university administration, considering Ethan's mistake wasn't major and that his voluntary resignation would quell the matter, let it slide. With graduation looming, Ethan faced a major setback in his life. He naturally couldn't swallow this, and guess Will Johnson was behind it. Furious, he confronted Will. We had an agreement. Why did you break it? Will laughed. Haha, simple. I felt I got the short end of the stick, so consider this interest. If you want to make a scene at this crucial moment, neither of us will benefit. You don't want to be exposed right before graduation, do you? Ethan was helpless. Fine, you can have your interest. I just want to know now, who told you about this? Will didn't answer directly. If you don't want anyone to know, don't do it in the first place. Don't ask me how I found out. Rest assured, I'm not stupid enough to completely crush you now, and I couldn't care less about your business. If I get my evidence back right now, I promise to keep my mouth shut. Ethan snorted. Oomph, you think I believe you? Will wasn't in a hurry to get the evidence back, appearing unconcerned. Don't worry, after you graduate successfully, I'll tell you who that person is. Ethan was outmaneuvered by Will. It was a very unpleasant feeling. During this time, Ethan kept asking around and found that Will and Chris Morgan were frequently seen together. Will was like a double-crosser, bouncing between him and Chris. This infuriated Ethan even more. He wanted to confront Chris, but ultimately held back, knowing it would yield no answers and could easily escalate things. Ethan's biggest enemy now was clearly not these two, but the shadow-like Daniel Hayes. Originally, Ethan's impersonation had made him feel like he, a perfectly good individual, was living as someone else's shadow. Now, the real owner of the name was willingly hiding in the background, becoming the shadow. There had to be a huge conspiracy behind this. As long as this shadow-like true owner didn't appear, Ethan couldn't eat or sleep. These past few days, Ethan suffered from severe insomnia. He tossed and turned at night and was listless during the day. Since resigning from student government, he had fewer opportunities for work-related contact with Chloe Davis. To see Chloe, he had to ask her out specifically. Their newly established romantic relationship seemed destined to end with graduation season, like bird scattering. At this point, Ethan had no mental energy to care about these things. The suspected appearance of the real Daniel Hayes had disrupted his entire life. Every day felt like a year. Meanwhile, at Harrison College, Chloe Davis and Daniel Hayes were having a small celebration. His plan had achieved a small success. Chloe, you were so right. The most powerful method in this world is to destroy someone's spirit, not just their body. Although Chloe hadn't contacted Ethan these past few days, with Will Johnson as her informant, she could get first-hand information at any time. Chloe knew Ethan had been in a very bad state recently, which was why she'd asked Daniel out to celebrate. Neither of them realized that a pair of eyes was watching them in secret. It was Owen Barnes. Owen wasn't content just being an actor. He wanted to become Chloe's real boyfriend one day. When he saw Chloe and Daniel together, everything became clear. Yeah, I'm just a fool being used. She'll never have feelings for me. Never. Owen's mind was in turmoil. He even thought about going to Ashton University to find Daniel Hayes right then. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. What is going on here? That younger student is named Daniel Hayes, and the guy Chloe is with is also named Daniel Hayes. As graduation neared, Owen Barnes unexpectedly turned into a private investigator. He began to secretly look into the matter. There was definitely something fishy going on. Even though Owen found nothing concrete, he stuck to his belief. He finally gave up at graduation. After graduation, everyone went their separate ways, and opportunities to meet again would be scarce. That night, at their graduation dinner, Owen was silent, just chugging drink after drink until he was blind drunk. In his stupor, he somehow found his true love. Owen was forced to let go of everything that had happened. He had to take responsibility for his actions, regardless of who initiated it. He decided that after graduation, he would first go back to his hometown and get married. In this respect, Owen was a rather traditional guy. Ethan Miller finally made it to graduation season. Even then, the real Daniel Hayes hadn't shown up. The anxiety in his heart finally eased. Regardless, he could now successfully get his diploma. As for Will Johnson, he kept his promise and destroyed the evidence. After all, destroying it now or not wouldn't affect Will, and Will seemed unwilling to continue fighting with him. However, Will's explanation inadvertently dragged Owen Barnes, who could have walked away clean, back into the mess. He didn't tell Ethan the truth, but instead shifted all the blame onto Owen. Will wasn't intentionally playing games with Ethan. Chloe was behind this. Although Chloe didn't appear, and Owen himself didn't appear, Will, through careful manipulation by Chloe, mistakenly believed the information had come from someone named Owen Barnes. Chloe did this because she calculated that after graduation, Ethan would never be able to find Owen. Chloe wouldn't have to bear any guilt for it either. She had never liked Owen from the beginning. It was Owen's unrequited love. Moreover, Owen now had his own commitments. Things went just as Chloe had predicted. Ethan, at this point, had no idea who this Owen Barnes even was. He suspected Owen might be an alias used by Daniel Hayes. Ethan grew increasingly uneasy. By the time he learned the truth, as told by Will, trying to find this Owen was impossible. After much thought, regardless of who this Owen was, the only thing he could do now was play along. Chloe firmly believed that if Daniel Hayes wanted revenge, he wouldn't stop here. Sooner or later, he'll slip up. Since he won't let go, once I find out where you're hiding, don't blame me for striking first. One day, Chloe Davis, who hadn't called in a long time, heard Ethan Miller had returned to Havenwood and proactively contacted him. Ethan, I'm in Havenwood. Recently, Ethan had been overwhelmed with troubles and had no mental energy for his relationship with Chloe. He even felt their relationship, still in its early stages, would naturally fizzle out with graduation. Chloe's call was an unexpected, pleasant surprise. Great, I'll pick you up. At this moment, Ethan hadn't realized, or rather, had overlooked a detail. When he and Chloe were getting to know each other, Chloe had clearly mentioned her hometown was Kingston. And Kingston was also Daniel Hayes' hometown. Looking back to when Ethan first met Chloe, if he hadn't been so single-mindedly focused on pursuing her, he might have given this some thought. The subsequent string of events left Ethan no time to scrutinize these details. Now, though Ethan remembered Chloe mentioning her hometown, his overwhelming joy made him overlook this detail once again. He just wanted to solidify things with Chloe as quickly as possible. Ethan desperately hoped this unexpected good fortune would dispel the recent run of bad luck. Though he was eager, he couldn't appear too forward now that Chloe had just arrived in Havenwood. That would only make him seem shallow. After playing the gracious host, Ethan simply told her that, as a Havenwood local, she could call him any time if she needed anything, and then he made to leave. It was their first reunion after graduation. He couldn't be too aggressive. Chloe smiled upon hearing this. Okay, you said it. I'm actually here in Havenwood to interview at Sterling Solutions. Ethan also smiled. What a coincidence. I'm planning to apply there too. Ethan didn't know that this was all part of Chloe's plan. Before coming to Havenwood, she had already done her research and knew Sterling Solutions was a major, reputable company in the city. Although she wasn't sure Ethan would definitely go there, she believed that as long as Ethan hadn't truly won her over, if she mentioned interviewing there, Ethan would certainly accompany her. Chloe had Ethan figured out completely. She didn't tell Ethan that the real Daniel Hayes would continue to be Ethan's shadow for some time. The destroy his spirit plan they had formulated was just beginning in college, not ending. The real Daniel had already applied for an off-campus internship. This period counted as practical experience. When he officially received his diploma and entered society as a recent graduate, the real counterattack would formally begin. During this time, Daniel willingly acted as Ethan's shadow. 6 months later, Ethan Miller never dreamed he would run into Owen Barnes at Sterling Solutions. Owen now had some experience. He had been headhunted from his previous company by Sterling Solutions with a high salary. Owen had undergone a transformation and was now very adept at packaging himself. He had a family to support, and a fresh graduate salary was completely insufficient. He worked harder than others. In contrast, Ethan, though his relationship with Chloe was heating up, was ultimately living under someone else's name. Ethan now regretted it. Just for a chance to attend a decent university, he wouldn't dare use his real name for the rest of his life. Only those who had experienced it could understand this kind of pain. Therefore, Ethan was very low-key at the company. He just wanted stability now. Any slight disturbance made him terrified. He even had a vague intuition that the real Daniel Hayes was lurking nearby. The nightmares he hadn't experienced in a long time returned. These past few days, his state of mind had deteriorated significantly. And just then, Owen Barnes arrived. If Owen had been just an ordinary employee after joining, Ethan might not have paid special attention. But Owen was already in middle management upon arrival, his status already surpassing Ethan, who had been with the company for over 6 months. Owen Barnes? Could it be someone with the same name? Ethan was still trying to reassure himself. But after some inquiries, he found out Owen had graduated from Harrison College. This was definitely not a simple coincidence. He went to Owen's office privately. The moment he saw Owen, he was stunned. "It's you." Owen also hadn't expected to become colleagues with Ethan. "You work at this company too?" Some things weren't convenient to say in the office. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop. Seated opposite each other, they each poured a cup of tea. Ethan got straight to the point. "All right, who are you really?" "What do you mean? Did Chloe not tell you my name when I backed off from pursuing her?" "Okay, let me formally introduce myself. My name is Owen Barnes." This was clearly not the answer Ethan wanted. "Stop pretending. Were you the one spreading those rumors back then?" Owen was taken aback again. "I don't understand what you're talking about. I admit I once wanted to be Chloe's boyfriend, but I wouldn't stoop so low as to do something like that." Faced with Owen's denial, Ethan naturally wouldn't give up. "If not you, then who could it be?" Owen snorted coldly. "You're being completely unreasonable. Waiter, the check." Owen stood up to pay, leaving Ethan sitting there. Ethan wouldn't give up easily. He would keep investigating until Owen Barnes admitted he was Daniel Hayes. Meanwhile, Chloe hadn't expected Owen to come to Sterling Solutions either. His appearance could be a variable. The day after Ethan confronted him, Chloe asked Owen out. "Owen, I didn't expect the world to be so small." Owen gave a wry smile. "Are you talking about that madman, Daniel Hayes?" Chloe felt helpless internally because only she knew this person wasn't Daniel Hayes. But Ethan Miller was hiding too well. She still couldn't find out his real name. Although their relationship had progressed, they hadn't reached the stage of meeting his parents. Lost in thought, Chloe said, "It seems one of you will have to leave the company. To be honest, I'm quite annoyed with him now, too." She said this somewhat disingenuously, but she had to. She needed to engineer Owen's departure to prevent him from being further entangled. She had already wronged Owen once. She couldn't keep harming him. Chloe's subtle hint made Owen understand instantly. "Chloe, since you put it that way, I guess I'll have to use the little power I have." After meeting with Owen Barnes, Chloe Davis went to find the real Daniel Hayes. "Daniel, you need to practice imitating his signature now." Daniel was utterly speechless. "This is my name. What right does he have? I'll do anything you ask, as long as that person gets what he deserves. But this one thing I really can't do." Daniel was telling the truth. He was the real one. Yet he, the rightful owner, had to imitate an imposter's handwriting. No one could accept that. Nearly 5 years had passed since his identity was stolen. Daniel had endured it for 5 long years. How he got through each day, no one knew. Daniel's heart was filled only with hatred. Until this revenge was exacted, he would never find peace. Chloe tried to persuade him. "I understand how you feel right now, but if we don't do this, how can we ensure his complete downfall?" Daniel suppressed the frustration welling inside him. "Fine, I'll try." Chloe felt a deep unease. She didn't know if this decision was right or wrong. Ever since Daniel had been impersonated by Ethan, her life's trajectory had also changed. Many things had snowballed, reaching a point where they were beyond human control. At Sterling Solutions, Owen Barnes, in his capacity as supervisor, constantly found fault with Ethan Miller. Ethan worked overtime, but still couldn't meet Owen's demands. This made Ethan extremely frustrated. He confronted Owen. "Are you carrying out a personal vendetta?" Owen didn't deny it. "Say whatever you want. Right now, I'm your superior, and I'm in charge of your performance appraisal. Even if you report me, everything I'm doing is by the book, strictly business, no personal grudges involved." With Owen laying it out like that, Ethan was helpless. Rank hath its privileges. This was the naked truth of the corporate world. As the saying goes, it's the petty tyrants who are hardest to deal with. Ethan made up his mind. Sooner or later, he would squeeze this Owen guy out. The tactics he used to deal with Will Johnson back in college would all be applied to Owen. Ethan had this idea because his recent covert investigation suggested this Owen Barnes wasn't the person he suspected. He seemed to have no connection to the real Daniel Hayes, and he probably wasn't the one who spread those rumors either. Could Will Johnson have tricked me back then? But at this critical juncture, Ethan had no time to contact Will for a face-to-face confrontation. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't reach Will now. First, Will had changed his number after graduation. Second, he wasn't in any alumni social media groups. Everything was Ethan's unilateral speculation. Just as they were arguing heatedly, the department head, Mr. Sullivan, pushed open the door. Seeing Ethan was also there, a broad smile spread across his face. "Haha, Daniel, you're here too. Excellent. Upper management is very pleased with your proposal for those 2 projects." He then looked at Owen. "Owen, from now on, you need to encourage everyone to learn from Daniel." After Mr. Sullivan left, both men were stunned. Owen had been trying everything to make Ethan's life miserable. So how did it turn into Mr. Sullivan personally praising him? Ethan was also full of questions. When had he ever submitted any proposals, let alone ones approved by senior management? Suddenly, Ethan remembered past incidents, and a chill ran down his spine. Damn it, he's like a persistent ghost. He knew this had to be the work of the real Daniel Hayes, his ever-present shadow. But then again, this was too bizarre. What abilities did this Daniel Hayes possess? In college, he was like an inescapable shadow, and now, in the company, he was not only elusive, but also repeatedly helping him. When things are too strange, there's usually something fishy going on, and what happened next was even more incredible. Within half a month, the new supervisor, Owen Barnes, was outshone by Ethan Miller's outstanding performance. Ethan directly took Owen's position. Although Owen wasn't fired, he was sidelined to an unimportant post. Barring any surprises, his career prospects at Sterling Solutions were effectively over. Owen had just graduated and was in his prime, far from the mid-career slump. No one wanted to coast and wait for retirement so early. Clearly, the company's management was pushing Owen to resign. On the surface, these developments seemed very favorable for Ethan, but he wasn't happy at all. After all, this person in the shadows hadn't been found. He always felt that some of his work was being done in advance by a mysterious individual. Why is this happening? What is Daniel Hayes trying to do? Yet another month passed. Ethan's career path was so smooth that he had become a favorite in the eyes of senior management. His future was limitless. Ethan even began to wonder if he was dreaming. At this moment, Ethan's situation could be perfectly described by a line from a classic poem, riding high on success, as if viewing all the capital splendors in a single day. No one in the workplace had ever had it so easy, making his colleagues green with envy. "Hey Daniel, don't forget us brothers when you get promoted." How can you think of Daniel like that? He's not that kind of person. For a time, Ethan was inundated with all sorts of flattery in attempts to curry favor. The more this happened, the more uneasy Ethan felt. His insomnia returned. By now, he had realized something. Could this Daniel Hayes be doing this intentionally? Did he want to see him climb higher only to fall harder? It had to be said, Ethan still retained some clarity at this point. Feeling down, he decided to confide in Chloe Davis. Their relationship had warmed up again, just one step away from taking her to meet his parents. If not for the recent incident with Owen, Chloe might have already been a guest at his home. When they met, Chloe proactively asked if there was an opportunity to visit his parents. Ethan was overjoyed. "Chloe, you understand me best." Chloe feigned a smile. "Of course. I wonder what your parents like. I can't go empty-handed for the first visit." Ethan smiled, saying that Chloe herself coming was the best gift. Chloe shook her head. "How can that be? In that case, you can just pick a couple of things." After Ethan left, Chloe immediately texted Daniel Hayes. "The plan is one step closer. Keep it up." A wave of joy washed over Daniel. "The day I've been waiting for is coming. I'll see him fall." Ethan didn't yet know that danger was stealthily approaching. He was already standing on the edge of a precipice. One more step, and he would be beyond redemption. Unfortunately, Ethan Miller hadn't realized this yet. His heart was filled with boundless anticipation. Only in the moments spent with Chloe Davis did his mind find a fleeting sense of peace. One day, Chloe came to Ethan's house as a guest. Ethan's parents, Mark and Sarah Miller, were extremely pleased with their future daughter-in-law. If it weren't their first meeting and they weren't too embarrassed to bring it up, the couple would have already started planning the wedding date. And where there's a first time, there's a second. When Chloe visited again later, the topic naturally came up. That's when Chloe stated her conditions. Her terms were quite reasonable. She didn't want a dowry, didn't need a car, and could even temporarily live with Ethan's parents. Her only requirement was a house in a good school district. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I'm not thinking about us, but for our future children. I hope you can understand. I hear there are regulations here that the house and proof of residency must match to ensure children get priority enrollment. May I take a look at your deed, and perhaps some utility bills for residency proof? With Chloe putting it so earnestly, how could Mark and Sarah refuse? They were also overly excited and had forgotten that their son's public identity was Daniel Hayes. Just as Mark was about to get the documents, he suddenly regained his composure and smiled. Oh, no need to look at those. I promise you, when you get married, we'll buy you a new house in a top school district. Then you can both register your address there. Chloe had thought seeing the documents would seal the deal, but Mark's sudden move caught her off guard. She had to find another way. A couple of days later, Chloe asked to borrow Ethan's phone. While she had it, she sent a message from Ethan's account to his high school friends group chat. Guys, I'm getting engaged. Let's all get together soon. By the time Ethan found out, it was too late. Why didn't you discuss this with me? Chloe put on an innocent expression. Are you upset? Well, I won't do it again next time. But the message is already out, and I can't retract it. Ethan was speechless. Fine, whatever. These friends would have to come to our wedding anyway. Ethan never dreamed that these very high school friends would be the ones to expose him. After all, everyone found it strange when Chloe called him Daniel. Huh? Ethan, when did you change your name? Ethan hadn't expected his classmates to be so quick. He had to cover it up. It's the name I used in college. He thought the matter would end there, but then Kevin Wallace piped up. If you're using a college name, how come you change your last name too? Ethan nearly rolled his eyes, but had to offer an explanation. You talk too much. I've always admired great American figures, like Daniel Webster, the statesman, and Hayes. Well, it just had a good ring to it, sounded strong. So, can I choose a name I like? Chloe chimed in to smooth things over. I'm the one marrying him, not you guys. What's it to you? Even if he changes his name to Rover tomorrow, I'd still love him. Is it any of your business? Although Chloe helped smooth things over, Ethan's still worried about complications arising from further delays. He decided, get the ceremony done first, then use the opportunity to make their relationship irreversible. After that, they'd get the marriage license. Then Chloe would have no choice. In his view, Chloe was still very traditional. In such extraordinary times, he had to resort to some minor tactics. He didn't yet know that Chloe had finally figured out his real identity, Ethan Miller, and traced his high school records. Everything Ethan had done back then was easily verifiable. Ethan thought convincing Chloe to have the wedding banquet before legally registering would be difficult, but to his surprise, Chloe readily agreed. Since that was the case, Ethan naturally wanted to act quickly. He had no idea that even if he hadn't suggested it, Chloe would have dragged her feet on getting the license, because once they were legally married, the nature of things would change. Even the wedding ceremony wasn't really for Ethan. She secretly texted the real Daniel Hayes. Everything is ready. Just waiting for the wedding day. Daniel received the message. So emotional he was close to tears. This day is finally coming. My 5 years of waiting, all for this moment. The wedding venue. Because Ethan didn't dare expose his true identity in front of friends, relatives, and especially his company colleagues, he specifically told the hotel staff that when making banners, they should absolutely not include names, just phrases like wedding ceremony of the bride and groom. The hotel staff were troubled. Sir, based on the bride's instructions, we've already made them. It's probably too late to remake them now, and covering or altering them might be bad luck. Ethan was firm. It's fine, just cover the names as much as possible. This is my wish, a kind of superstition. It has nothing to do with you. Only then did the hotel staff temporarily use red cloth to cover the names. On the other hand, since they hadn't registered their marriage yet, the MC reading the marriage certificate could be skipped. Ethan repeatedly emphasized to the MC that when his name came up, Mr. Miller would suffice. Since his surname really was Miller, saying Mr. Miller and Miss Davis, 100 years of happiness wouldn't be out of place. To ensure the MC's cooperation, Ethan privately gave him a generous tip, stressing that a fortune teller had advised against using his full name that day, or it would be unlucky. The MC had hosted countless weddings but had never heard of such a superstition. However, given the tip, he naturally agreed. Ethan truly regretted it now. His impulsive, terrible decision meant that even for something as significant as his wedding, he had to live as someone else, afraid to use his own name. If his company found out, his career would be ruined. Fortunately, the entire process went off without a hitch. Even though part of the names on the banners were covered, no one coming in and out paid attention to this detail. The MC was also very cooperative, managing to conduct the ceremony without anyone noticing anything amiss. Ethan really lucked out with his surname this time. It was truly a fortunate coincidence. Just as the MC was about to declare them married, a figure suddenly rushed onto the stage. "Wait a minute, I am the groom." It was the real Daniel Hayes. As he stepped onto the stage, he ripped off the red cloth covering the names on a nearby display. The name revealed was indeed Daniel Hayes. Then, the real Daniel Hayes began to tell his story to everyone present. Every word, every sentence was a tearful, blood-soaked accusation. Ethan never imagined the real owner of the name would strike at this very moment, that everything he had built would crumble on his wedding day. Just then, a group of people in official-looking attire arrived. "Please cooperate with our investigation." It turned out that after Ethan, as Daniel Hayes, was promoted to supervisor at Sterling Solutions, there had been several irregular project approvals and financial sign-offs. He couldn't prove those signatures weren't his. In short, Ethan Miller was likely going to be inside for a very long time. This wedding was definitely not meant for him.